Hi and welcome. Today we're gonna sew the Ida skirt. It's a clean modern wrap skirt with soft volume and a slightly deconstructed look. It ties at the waist and features a smooth yoke section with a gathered lower panel that's attached using an open edge. So the raw seam is visible, but that's optional. There's a long version and a short version. In this video, I'll be making the short one. And before we get started, make sure to read through the manual that comes with the pattern. It covers the general basics like seam allowance, grain line, cutting tips. Start by printing and taping together your pattern. We'll start with the front pieces. You need two of them, one for the left side and one for the right, so they must be mirrored. That means they should be opposite of each other, not identical. The easiest way to do this is to fold your fabric in half, right sides together, and cut both layers at once. Next, the back piece. This piece is only cut once, so just lay it flat on your fabric and cut it as it is. Now it's time to mark all notches. You can either cut small snips into the fabric edge with sharp scissors or use a fabric marker. There's a right side and a wrong side of the fabric, which is the inside later. So if your fabric looks very similar on both sides, I recommend marking the wrong side after cutting. We need 3 large rectangles. You'll find the measurements for your size and length in the manual. Here I'm making the short version. If you're making the long version, the process is exactly the same. You can also always make it shorter or longer as you like. Depending on the width of your fabric, you may be able to fold it and cut 2 rectangles at once, like I'm doing here. If your fabric is narrower, you'll need to cut the panels one by one, placed underneath each other. Just make sure the grain line follows the direction of the selvage. For the bias binding, you can either use store-bought one that's 1 centimeter wide or about 3/8 of an inch, or you can cut your own from the fabric. In this video, I'll show you how I made mine. So to make your own bias tape, cut strips that are 4 centimeter wide, which is about 1.6 inches. For the long waist tie, the total length depends on your size, which you can find in the manual. You'll also need 2 shorter ties, each 60 centimeter long, that's around 23.5 inches. You can join shorter strips together to create the long one. Just place the ends together, right sides facing each other, in a 90-degree angle and sew diagonally across the corner. Trim the seam allowance and press it open. Keep going until you have the total length that you need. First, fold it in half lengthwise and press to create a center crease. Then fold each edge in toward that center and press again. It will take a little while, so be patient. And then in the end, we press it in again and fold it over. For the short ties, we need to finish one end each, so it looks clean. Just fold in the short edge 1 centimeter and then fold it back. After sewing the short ties closed along the long edge, give them a quick press so the seam lays flat. We'll attach them in just a bit, but first let's prep the skirt pieces. So we stay stitched the curved top and bottom edges of the back and front yoke pieces. This helps to stabilize our pieces. So for that we set the stitch length to 2 millimeters and sew a straight stitch inside the seam allowance on the top and bottom edges. Now we're gonna finish the side seams. So we're gonna overlock or zigzag stitch both side seams on the back piece, and on the front it's only one side. And we're also gonna do that with the 3 panels. We're gonna finish the 2 side seams each. And if you don't want the open edge detail, you can also finish the top edge on each panel. Now it's time to attach the short ties. Lay all pieces right side facing up. On the left side of the back piece, measure 3 centimeters from the bottom, and on the right side of the front piece, which has the side seam on the left side, just have a look in the video. Measure also 3 centimeter from the bottom. Then we're going to take the short ties and place the unfinished ends right side on right side at this place and secure them with a few stitches. Now we sew the top pieces together. Start with the front piece that doesn't have a tie. Place it right sides together with the back yoke, matching the left side edges. Pin in place and sew along the edge using a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Remember to backstitch at the beginning and the end to secure the seam. Next, take the other front piece, the one that already has the short tie attached, and place it right sides together with the other side of the back yoke. Here we're going to leave a small gap at the top because this is where we'll later thread the long waist tie through. So first measure 2 centimeters from the top edge and make a mark. Then mark another point 1 centimeter below that. Start sewing from the top, backstitch when you reach the first mark, skip the 1 centimeter gap, backstitch again, and then continue sewing down the side as usual. Then we press open the side seams. I like to do it from both sides. Now it's time to work on the lower gathered panels. First we'll join the 3 pieces together, lay them right sides together and sew the side seams to create one long strip. After sewing, press the seams open so they lie flat. Now we gather the top edge of this long panel. Set your machine to a straight stitch with the longest stitch length, usually around 4 or 5 millimeters, depending on your machine. Don't backstitch at the beginning or end and leave long thread tails. We need those to pull later. Sew 2 rows of basting stitches along the top edge of each panel section, one at a time. The first row should be about 3 to 4 millimeters from the edge and the second one about 1 centimeter in, which is roughly 1 foot width apart. This gives the gathers more stability and makes it easier to adjust them evenly. Now for each panel section you should have 2 long rows of stitches running along the top. Before you begin pulling, mark the center of the middle panel. This will help align everything later. And then together hold the top threads only and gently pull, sliding the fabric along the threads. Work slowly and carefully to avoid breaking the threads. It helps to do a little at a time from both ends. Gather the entire piece until it roughly matches the width of your assembled yoke. Now we attach the gathered panel to the top part of the skirt. If you want to keep the raw seam visible as a design detail, here's how to do it. Lay both pieces with the right side facing up. Then flip the top part, the yoke, wrong side up, so the gathered panel and the yoke are now wrong sides together. The raw edge of the gathered panel should face out. Match the center of the middle panel to the center back of the yoke. Then align the side seams and spread the gathers evenly around the edge. Pin everything in place carefully. Once you're happy with how the gathers are distributed, sew the 2 pieces together using a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Use a regular stitch length now and remember to backstitch at the beginning and end. Sew slowly and evenly to make sure the gathers stay in place and don't shift. Optional, you can now remove the basting stitches. After sewing, you can remove the gathering stitches if you like. Gently pull out the long threads using a seam ripper or your fingers or the scissors, 1 row at a time. We have the open seam detail on the right side, so this is how the skirt looks from the inside. If you prefer this clean finish on the outside, you can simply sew the pieces together right sides facing each other and then the clean look is on the outside. Give the seam a good press so everything lays flat and the gathers fall softly. Next, we'll sew an additional row of top stitching just above the gathered seam. This helps to hold the gathers in place and gives the skirt a more structured look. Use a regular stitch length and sew just above the original seam, following it closely. Take your time and sew slowly and make sure everything lays nice and flat. Now press the open edges on both sides of the skirt. Fold them in twice by 1 cm and press them down to create a clean edge. Then sew them down along the inner fold using a 1 cm seam allowance. For the little opening we made earlier, we want to make sure that the seam allowance doesn't flip. So now we sew a small row of top stitching on both sides of the side seam, just close to the edge to keep it flat and stable. Now it's time to add the long bias tape around the top edge of the skirt. Lay the skirt left side facing up and match the long bias tape on the left side with the short tie from the length. Place the tape along the top edge, starting from the wrong side of the skirt, and pin it in place. Sew along the fold line of the bias tape about 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Some people like to sew just next to the fold line, which works too. Sew all the way around the waistline. Now flip the bias tape over to the right side and fold it over the raw edge. Pin it in place neatly, making sure the folded edge covers the stitching from before. At each end, tuck the short edge in, fold the bias tape closed and press it flat to create a clean finish. Then start sewing from one end, sewing close to the open edge to close the tape. Continue around the entire waistband, keeping your stitch line neat and consistent. Take your time here, this final stitching really shapes how your finished skirt will look. Now we come to the final step, hemming. So now try on your skirt and check the length. If you want to shorten it, mark the new hem line. Make sure to still leave about 2 cm extra for folding the hem. For hemming the skirt, fold the fabric edge up by 1 cm, press down, then fold it up again by another 1 cm and press again. Press everything neatly and pin it in place to keep it secure. Then sew along the inner folded edge with a straight stitch. This will give you a clean, polished finish that holds up well over time. Take it slow to keep the line even, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed sewing the Ida skirt and that you're happy with how it turned out. If you have any questions while sewing, feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. I love seeing your version, so please feel free to tag me on TikTok or send me a picture on Etsy. It truly makes my day to see your finished pieces. Thank you so much for sewing with me, and hopefully see you again in the next video.